You soon arrive at a double door in the left-hand wall. You listen at the door but hear nothing. You try the handle, it turns, and you open the left door slightly and peer through the crack. An armed warrior is lying face down on the floor of a bare room with smooth walls and a low ceiling. He is presumably dead, for he makes no movement, even when you call out to him. A large jewel, perhaps a diamond, lies just beyond his outstretched arm. You finally reach the warrior's body, but as soon as you touch the jewel, both it and the warrior vanish into thin air. You hear the door slam behind you, followed by a sudden, ominous rumbling above you. You look up and see the ceiling start to lower. You run to the door to try to escape, but it is locked and there is no handle on the inside. The ceiling gradually drops until you are forced to lie on the ground, trying to halt the ceiling's progress with your hands and feet. But it is a hopeless task, and you are crushed to death in the stone vise. If only you'd found a potion that allowed you to detect traps like this. You soon arrive at a double door in the left-hand wall. You listen at the door. The tunnel continues north for quite a distance before coming to a dead end. The mouth of a chute protrudes from the western wall, and it appears to be the only alternative to turning back. You decide to risk it and climb into the chute. You slide gently down and emerge into a room, landing on your back. As soon as you stand up, you are confronted by the most repulsive sight you have ever laid eyes on. There in front of you, wallowing in a circular pool of fetid slime, is a bulbous creature too horrible to be believed. Its body is green and covered all over with fearsome-looking spikes. Its face is a mass of crimson blisters, one of which suddenly bursts to reveal yet another of its many sinister, all-seeing eyes. A narrow path runs around the edge of the pool and leads into another tunnel in the far wall. Remembering the description of the vile blood beast and the warning about the toxic gas rising from its pool, you cover your mouth with your sleeve and step forward with your sword drawn, wary of the blood beast's tongue. As you step around the side of the pool, it rolls forward and flicks out its tongue. But you are ready for it and cleave it with one swipe of your sword. The beast howls in pain and stretches forward frantically, trying to clasp you between its blood-filled jaws. You start hacking at its hideous face in an attempt to pierce its real eyes. The creature reaches for you with its mouth from the pool. You step back to avoid it, but slip on its fetid slime. It sinks its teeth into your ankle, costing you precious stamina. The blood beast's tail whips around you. You duck, but not quickly enough, and it punctures your arm deeply. Breathing heavily during your fights, you begin to succumb to the toxic gas and fall, cracking your head on the floor. Your blade strikes one of the blood beast's real eyes with devastating effect. It slumps back into its pool, thrashing about in a frenzy. You seize the opportunity and run around the side of the pool to the tunnel exit. The tunnel leads into a large room, its ceiling supported by several marble pillars. As you enter the room, you see a strange beast to your right. It has the body of a lion with dragon-like wings attached to it, but its head is like that of an old bearded man. You recognize the beast. It is a manticore. Taking heed of the warning poem you took from the skeleton warrior, you watch out for its tail, which sprouts a profusion of sharp spikes at its tip, thick and hard as iron bolts. You raise your shield in front of you just in time to protect yourself from a volley of spikes released from the manticore's tail and aim straight at your heart. They sink into your shield, and you remain unharmed. Swiftly, you draw your sword and advance on the manticore. You lunge at the creature's stomach with your sword drawn, but just as you thought you'd land a crushing blow, the creature whips around, parrying your effort. Neither of you are harmed. The creature runs directly at you. You move too late, and the creature smashes you onto a wall, costing you valuable stamina. You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points. The giant creature whips its spiked tail at you, firing more spikes. You duck and roll, quickly slicing a chunk from its tail, passing close to you. As you are wiping the manticore's blood from your sword, you are surprised to see a small
Obliterated
man jump out from behind one of the marble pillars. He is dressed in a tight-fitting green tunic and looks quite harmless, although you are wary of the way he is holding an opaque glass ball with a shimmering green light. "Greetings," he says cheerfully. "My name is Igbot, the gnome, and I am the trial master for your final test. Needless to say, my magical powers are great, so you should not try to attack me. You may have learnt, during your quest, that gems play an essential part in the trial of champions. The iron door in front of you is the victory exit, but there is only one way of opening it. 3 gems have to be put into the lock mechanism in the correct order. Each gem radiates a unique energy, which will trigger the mechanism. If you do it correctly, that is. But first, we need the correct gems. First, you will need an emerald." The gnome shakes his head and says, "I am afraid that you have failed the trial of champions. Baron Sukhumvit's death-trap dungeon will keep its secrets for another year, as you will not be allowed to leave here. You are appointed my servant for the rest of your days to prepare and modify the dungeon for future contestants. Perhaps, in another life, you will succeed."
So, jetzt habe ich es verstanden. Das war hier jetzt der letzte Raum im Dungeon. Und dann brauchen wir 3 Gems, die ich nicht hatte. Deswegen habe ich ein Game Over gehabt. Ich glaube nicht, dass man hier wieder zurück kann, auch wenn das die Karte impliziert. Wahrscheinlich kommt man von unten dann. So, das heißt, ich muss jetzt am besten von Anfang an gucken, wo ich noch nicht war. Und dieser Dungeon ist ja jetzt nicht gerade klein gewesen. Hier gab es aber nicht viel. Hier ist zum Beispiel ganz verschiedene Möglichkeiten. Aber wir gehen nochmal zurück und zurück und zurück. Ja, starten wir erstmal einfach hier und schauen, was hier passiert wird.
The clamour of the excited spectators gradually fades behind you as you venture deep into the gloom of the cavern. Large crystals hang from the tunnel roof.
Ja gut, das hatten wir ja ganz am Anfang.
Intervals,
Also kann ich das jetzt mal ein bisschen skippen.
radiating.
Open the box, North. Ja, ich weiß nicht, habe ich die geöffnet? Das ist echt schon zu lange her.
The lid of the box lifts off easily, and inside you find 2 gold pieces and a note written on a small piece of parchment addressed to you.
Ja, das hatte ich
Placing the
schon.
gold in your pocket, you read the message, which says, "Well done. At least you had the sense to stop and take advantage of the token aid given to you. Now I can advise you that you will need to find and use several items if you hope to pass triumphantly through my death trap dungeon. Signed, Succumbit." Memorizing the advice on the note, you tear it into tiny pieces and continue north along the tunnel.
So, und da hatte ich nämlich Head East und jetzt mache ich natürlich Head West.
Following the 3 sets of wet footprints along the west passage of the tunnel, you soon arrive at a junction.
Das ist jetzt eigentlich egal, was ich nehme. Ich muss ja sowieso wahrscheinlich den ganzen Dungeon aufmachen und dann muss ich den richtigen Weg finden, um die 3 Steine zu kriegen und nicht zu sterben. Also ist das praktisch auch so eine Art Roguelike. Whatever. Wir gehen erstmal dahin, bevor wir ganz nach Westen gehen.
Ahead, you hear the thud of heavy footsteps approaching. Out of the gloom steps a large, primitive caveman, dressed in animal hide and carrying a stone club. On seeing you, he grunts and spits on the floor, then raises his club and lumbers on towards you.
Jetzt gibt's richtig auf Schnauze. Ja, ich bin ja fit. Also let's go, bro.
Your enemy is strong, but slow, and screams in pain as your sword sinks into his leg. You dodge to the side as the caveman swings his club at you and kick out, knocking him to the floor. You run around the lumbering caveman, crashing your sword into his arm.
Pleased with your victory, you notice that the dead caveman is wearing a leather wristband with 4 small rat skulls hanging from it.
Das ist jetzt actually echt interessant, weil das kann mir sehr viel Glück oder sehr viel Pech bringen. Aber das müssen wir natürlich nutzen.
The wristband was made and cursed by a hag. It slows down your reactions and dulls your senses, reducing your skill by 4 points. You kick the tunnel wall in anger and stomp off north. After a few more steps, you see a backpack propped up against the tunnel wall. You wonder if it belongs to one of your rivals. There is a single gold piece lying in the bottom of the backpack. As you reach for it, you suddenly feel a light tickling movement on the back of your hand. You withdraw your hand slowly, trying to control your mountain panic, and are horrified to see a black widow spider. Before you can shake it off, it sinks its venomous fangs deep into your wrist, costing you a huge 6 stamina points. Only your incredible strength could allow you to withstand the powerful venom. But you are weakened, and also lose 1 skill point. Your hand trembles as you pocket the gold piece, cursing the person who dropped the backpack as you set off north again. You arrive at a junction in the tunnel. A new branch leads west, but the wet footprints you have been following continue north. You decide to keep following the footprints. You soon come to another junction in the tunnel. One branch leads east, but the wet footprints you have been following continue north, and you decide to follow their trail. The passage opens out into a wide cabin which is darker but much drier. Ahead, you see the footprints gradually fade, then disappear. There is a large idol in the center of the cabin that must be 6 meters high. In its head are jeweled eyes, each as big as your fist. On either side of the idol stand 2 giant stuffed, bird-like creatures.
Ja, nachdem die beiden letzten Loot-Versuche so super erfolgreich waren und wir ja überhaupt nichts verloren haben, sollte ich das jetzt natürlich auch noch nehmen, damit wir genau wissen, dass das alles falsch ist und wir genau das Gegenteil beim nächsten Run machen müssen. Ja, auf jeden Fall. Take the fucking jewels.
The idol is very smooth and will be difficult to climb. Some rope would have been ideal for this task, but alas, you don't have any. So slowly and carefully, you begin to climb the idol. You're about to grab hold of its large ear when suddenly your foot slips. We'll need to check how lucky you are. We'll roll 2 dice, and if the number rolled is equal to or less than your current luck score, you have been lucky. But if the number rolled is higher than your current luck score, you have been unlucky. You just managed to grab the idol's earlobe and regain your footing. You scramble over its face and sit down on the bridge of its nose. You draw your sword and consider which jeweled eye to prize out first. As you touch the emerald eye of the idol, you hear a creaking sound below you. Looking down, you are shocked to see the 2 stuffed birds taking flight. Their wings flap in jerky movements, but they are soon above you and look set to attack. You'll fight the flying guardians, 1 at a time, but your skill is reduced by 3 during this combat. because of your restricted position.
You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points. Clawing at your leg with its talons, the Guardian rips away a chunk of your stamina.
Ja, ich habe ganz vergessen, das sind ja diese vereinfachten Regeln, dass man ja immer nur 3 Runden überleben muss. Dann hat man automatisch gewonnen. Insofern ist das, glaube ich, doch noch machbar, theoretisch. Aber ich habe jetzt auch nur noch 4 Skill. Letztendlich egal eigentlich, was ich mache. Okay, das war's sogar. Das war's für 12. Okay.
Neither of you are harmed.
Nochmal Attack. Oh, das ist nicht gut.
Guardian snaps at you with its vicious beak. You parry, but the tip of the creature's beak sinks deep into your arm.
The crumpled form of the first flying guardian falls crashing to the floor. So you ready yourself to take on the second.
You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points.
Oh.
The beating wing of the Guardian smashes into the side of your head, leaving you seeing stars and sapping your stamina. Clawing at your leg with its talons, the Guardian rips away a chunk of your stamina.
Oh.
Guardian snaps at you with its vicious beak. You parry, but the tip of the creature's beak sinks deep into your arm.
Your final swipe dispatches the second flying guardian.
Oh, jetzt habe ich wieder 7. Das ist ja voll mächtig.
Bodies of the flying guardians lying motionless on the floor. You start to prize out the idol's emerald eye with the tip of your sword. At last it comes free, and you are surprised by its weight. Hoping that it may be of use later, you put it in your backpack. You try to force the point of your sword under the emerald eye. Much to your surprise, it shatters on contact, releasing a jet of poisonous gas straight into your face. The gas knocks you out and you fall backwards, bouncing down the idol to land on the stone floor. Your adventure ends here. Following the 3 sets of wet footprints along the west passage of the tunnel, you soon arrive at a junction. Ahead, you hear the thud of heavy footsteps approaching. Out of the gloom steps a large, primitive caveman.
Your enemy is strong, but slow, and screams in pain as your sword sinks into his leg. You dodge to the side as the caveman swings his club at you and kick out, knocking him to the floor. You run around the lumbering caveman, crashing your sword into his arm.
Pleased with your victory, you notice that the dead caveman is wearing a leather wristband with 4 small rat.
Ja, diesmal nehmen wir das mal nicht mit, nicht wahr?
After a few more steps, you see a backpack propped up against the tunnel wall. You arrive at a junction in the tunnel. A new branch. You soon come to another junction in the tunnel. One branch. The passage opens out into a wide cabin which is darker but much. There is a large idol in the center of the cabin that must be. The idol is very smooth and will be difficult to climb. Some rope would have been ideal for this task, but alas, you just managed to grab the idol's earlobe and regain your footing. You scramble over its face and sit down on the bridge of its nose. You draw your sword and consider which jeweled eye to prize out first. As you touch the emerald eye of the idol, you hear a creaking sound below you. Looking down, you are shocked to see the 2 stuffed birds.
The Guardian snaps at you with its vicious beak, but you're able to smash the hilt of your sword into its outstretched neck.
Let's go!
Clawing at your leg with its talons, the Guardian rips away a chunk of your stamina. You quickly eat some provisions, increasing your stamina by 4 points. Coming at you with its razor-sharp talons, you're able to swipe your sword, partially removing one of the Guardian's toes.
The crumpled form of the first flying Guardian falls crashing to the floor.
You're able to grab the wing of the Guardian and send it crashing into the idol. It recovers, but you took some of its stamina. The Guardian snaps at you with its vicious beak, but you're able to smash the hilt of your sword into its outstretched neck. Guardian snaps at you with its vicious beak. You parry, but the tip of the creature's beak sinks deep into your arm.
Your final swipe dispatches the second flying Guardian. You look down and see the crumpled bodies of the flying Guardians lying motionless on the floor. You lower yourself carefully down the idol, and wasting no more time in the cavern, run forward to the tunnel in the northern wall. Not much farther down the tunnel, you come to a closed door on your left. Putting your ear to the door, you listen intently but hear nothing. You enter a room which is small and completely empty. As soon as you are inside, the door slams shut behind you. Suddenly a voice booms out of nowhere, shouting, "Welcome to Death Trap Dungeon, the ingenious killer labyrinth of my master. Adventurer, I trust you will pay your respects to my master by shouting out his name." You take a deep breath and shout, "Hail Succumvit!" Once again, the mysterious voice calls out, only this time its tone is full of contempt and derision. "So, we have a sniveling weed in our midst, do we?" sneers the voice. "My master has a special gift for you, loathsome creep." Suddenly, water starts pouring into the room through a hole in the ceiling. It soon rises above your ankles, and there is no apparent way of escape. You wade back to the door. It is firmly locked, but in desperation you try ramming it with your shoulder. We'll see how skillful you really are. Remember, a roll equal to or less than your skill score means you have been skillful, but a roll higher than your skill could end badly. The door cannot withstand the furious battering you are giving it. The center panel cracks and splinters, enabling you to kick a hole in it large enough for you to squeeze through. Soaked, but happy to have survived your ordeal, you set off north again. The tunnel twists and turns, but keeps steadily north. Ahead, you see a thin shaft of blue light streaming down from the ceiling to the floor. It sparkles and shimmers, and you can see images of laughing faces in the light.
Ja, hier war ich auf jeden Fall auch schon. Walk Through the Light habe ich auch schon gemacht. Mache ich das andere jetzt? Ich bin mir nicht sicher.
You come to an arched doorway set in the right-hand wall of the tunnel. The heavy stone door is closed, but there is an iron latch and a round handle. Lifting the latch and pushing the heavy stone door open, you find yourself in a large cabin. The light is dim and murky, but as your eyes begin to adjust, you see that the walls are covered in green algae and running with moisture. The floor is strewn with straw. The atmosphere is warm, damp, and fetid, and a soft humming sound fills the air. You step gingerly through the straw towards a corner of the cabin where there appears to be a shallow pit. Peering warily into the pit, you are disgusted to see a mass of pale, writhing worms, some as much as half a meter long. Unable to face the thought of the touch of the writhing worms, you leave the cabin and continue north. The tunnel ends shortly at a junction. Looking left and right, you see a narrow passage disappearing into the dim distance. Ahead, you hear the sound of rocks being ground and crushed. The noise grows louder, and suddenly you realize that the wall on your right is starting to collapse. Terrified, you watch as a large, hideous, worm-like creature with a gaping mouth and powerful mandibles
This is not good.
Its great jaws continue to crunch the rock as it turns its head slowly from side to side, feeling the cool air in the tunnel. It appears to be totally blind, but seems to...
Ich glaube, das hatte ich schon. Ich glaube, da habe ich auch wirklich richtig gut aufs Maul gekriegt. Ich bin mir aber nicht mehr sicher, deswegen checke ich das jetzt mal.
You draw your sword and advance slowly towards the huge, slimy rock grub.
The rock grub is strong, but slow. You swing your sword, which smashes into its pulsating body. You thrust your sword, and you clearly damage the creature. You try to run around the side of the creature, but it grabs your arm, throwing you hard into the wall.
Pleased with your combat skills, you step round the great bulk of the dead rock grub and peer into the darkness of the borehole it left. You can only see a few meters, but are able to make out that it inclines slightly and is wet from the secreted slime of the rock grub.
Genau. Walk west along the tunnel oder explore the borehole map. So, und beides. Ah ja, die Borehole. Ich glaube, da bin ich entweder gestorben oder ich weiß nicht mehr. Ich weiß es nicht mehr. Also gehen wir erstmal nach Westen.
After a long walk down the tunnel, you come to a dead end. A large mirror reaching from the ceiling to the floor hangs on the end wall, and in the dim light, you can just about make out your own reflection. You step up to the mirror and are amused by your distorted reflection. Your head looks as large as a pumpkin, and your face is exceedingly strange. Suddenly, without warning, a terrible pain pounds through your head, and you try to look away from the mirror, but you are unable to. Some evil force is keeping your eyes glued to your own reflection. You grip your head with your hands and realize, with horror, that it is expanding. You can withstand it no longer, and blacking out with pain, you fall unconscious to the floor, never to wake. Your adventure ends here.
And it's another game over. Ich schaue mir jetzt das jetzt nochmal an.
Ahead, you hear the sound of rocks being ground and crushed.
Ach, da muss ich das nochmal bekämpfen. Ah. Ja, dann nicht.
You walk down the passage and soon find yourself standing at the edge of a deep, dark pit.
What?
The passage continues east on the other side of the pit. You think you could probably jump over the pit, but you're not sure.
I'm not sure.
There is a rope hanging down from the ceiling over the center of the pit.
Okay. Throw your shield over the pit and jump after it. Jump over the pit carrying all your possessions. Reach for the rope with your sword. Puh. Das dritte ist wahrscheinlich am einfachsten, aber das ist auch die einzige Möglichkeit. Also ist das hier eigentlich ein Dead End? Das ist eigentlich total bescheuert. Naja, egal. Wir versuchen hier weiterzukommen. Das heißt, wir versuchen über das Loch hier hoch und dann hier nach oben und nicht nach links und dann läuft das schon. Das läuft schon.
Gripping the rope firmly, you step back to take a running jump. However, in the dim light, you do not notice that someone has cut the rope almost in two, just a little way above the section you are holding. As you swing out across the pit, it suddenly breaks, and you scream with fear as you plunge headlong to the depths below. You land heavily on your back, but luckily your backpack cushions your fall, only costing you 1 skill point and 2 stamina points. It could have been much worse. The darkness is almost pitch black at the bottom of the pit, and you crawl along the floor, groping in front of you. Suddenly your hand touches something cold, hard and smooth. The object is small and round, but you cannot figure out what it is. You place it in your backpack, hoping to see what it is once you are out of the pit. You continue to crawl forward and soon reach the pit wall. It's too smooth to climb, and you have to cut hand and toe holds in it with your sword. This takes a long time, but finally you climb out of the pit on the east side. You immediately check out the object in your backpack and discover that you have found an orb of blood-red ruby. You are absolutely delighted and head off east in high spirits, whistling softly. The tunnel makes a sudden left turn and continues north as far as you can see. You soon arrive at a closed wooden door in the left-hand wall. Only a few meters further down the passage, you see another closed door in the left-hand wall. The letter X is scratched into its center panel. Putting your ear to the door, you listen intently, but can hear nothing. The passage
Wir versuchen jetzt nur noch die Karte aufzumachen.
leading
Ne?
you relentlessly northwards. There are no doorways or even an alcove to investigate, and you become less guarded as you plod on. After a while, you become so nonchalant that you fail to notice a thin tripwire stretched low across the passage. It is only when your foot catches it and you hear a distant rumble that you realize your mistake. The rumbling sound swells to an almost deafening level, and suddenly, out of the gloom of the tunnel ahead, you see a massive boulder rolling towards you, gathering speed with every second. Dropping your shield and losing one skill point, you turn and things could end very badly. Indeed. Before you have time to reach a doorway, the boulder is upon you. You cry out in pain and terror as it crushes you to the floor. Your adventure ends here.
So, dann schauen wir jetzt gleich nochmal hier in die Richtung und hier in die Richtung. Weil was ich ja brauche, hier ist auch noch ein Weg und hier ist noch ein Weg und dann ist man hier beim letzten Shit. Aber wie kommt man von hier aus hin? Ach ja, ich muss ja auch noch hier nach ganz Westen gehen. Hier. Okay. Dann fangen wir hier nochmal an. Hier gehen wir schön nach links. Kann man denn hier auch nach links? Das funktioniert irgendwie nicht. Von der Seite. Okay, dann versuchen wir das gleich auf jeden Fall von der Seite hier.
Following the 3 sets of wet footprints along the west passage of the tunnel.
Continue west.
Walking along the tunnel, you are surprised to see a large iron bell hanging down from the ceiling.
Iron bell, oh wait. Nein. Falscher Knopf. Sind wir da weiter. Okay. Oh. Wie sieht's denn aus, mein Hackerfreund? Oh, so sieht's aus. He's cooking shit. Holy shit. Let's go!
Machst du direkt 20 Mods oder was?
Directly so, ja komm, boom. Alles geht in Flammen auf, ey. Selbst die Playstation geht auf in Flammen auf, ey. Dann sagt er, boah, das ist jetzt wirklich zu viel für mich. Habe ich nicht erwartet.
A dull bong sounds from the bell like a death toll. Everything around you begins to vibrate. You grit your teeth as your head starts to shudder. Your whole body is trembling. You fall to the floor, losing 2 skill points and 2 stamina points. You quiver and shake, writhing convulsively on the floor as the vibrations intensify. You search desperately for a way of stopping the bell. You pull your boot off your foot and force yourself to reach up and hold it against the bell. And slowly, the bell stops vibrating, and the pain in your body gradually eases. You manage to stand up, but you do not release your boot from the bell until it becomes completely still. You put your boot back on and continue your journey west. The tunnel veers sharply to the right and continues north for as far as you can see. You hear a tremendous commotion in the distance, growling and snarling and howling. You draw your sword and set off in the direction of the noise. Ahead, in the dim light, you see two hobgoblins fighting, punching, and kicking each other furiously. Next to where the hobgoblins are fighting, there is a leather bag lying on the floor, and it seems to be this that they are fighting over. Caught in their scuffle, they are completely unprepared for your attack, and you are able to kill the first one before he can draw his sword. You turn to face the remaining hobgoblin, who snarls at you with hatred.
Messy but effective.
You hurl a rock directly at the hobgoblin's head, but it bats it away. The hobgoblin runs at you, but you twist aside as your sword lands home. With one eye still on the bag, the hobgoblin doesn't see you attack and screeches as you land a blow.
Cut and bruised from your victorious battle, you see that the hobgoblins have nothing of any use to you on them. So you decide to open the bag on the floor. Inside, you find a corked earthenware jug. You uncork it and sniff the liquid inside. It smells sharp and acrid. You lift the jug to your lips and take a deep swig of the liquid. The moment it hits your mouth, it burns so much that you drop the jug and grab your throat in agony. You have swallowed acid, costing you 1 skill point and 4 stamina points. Thick smoke rises up from where the acid has fallen from the broken jug. You fall to the floor and crawl along, desperately trying to find drinkable water in the shallow pools of the dripping tunnel. This will be a test of your luck. We'll roll 2 dice, and if the number rolled is equal to or less than your current luck score, you find a pool behind the dead hobgoblins and take great gulps of the cool water as quickly as you can. The water neutralizes the acid, and slowly you begin to recover. Still in great pain, you haul yourself to your feet and set off north. The tunnel soon takes another sharp right turn. Following it east, you arrive at a strange obstruction, a row of 12 wooden poles across the tunnel. They are fixed to the walls at each end, about half a meter off the floor and spaced about a meter apart. You step confidently onto the first pole and stride across to the next. As you land on the third pole, It immediately releases a shower of sharp splinters, each several centimeters long, and losing you 2 luck points. They fly out in all directions at great speed, and you can't avoid being hit. We'll roll 2 dice for the number of splinters that sink into your flesh. Each one that hits you will cost you 1 stamina point. You manage to scramble over the remaining poles and sit down to the painful task of removing the splinters from your body.
I'm so dead.
After resting for a while, you set off east again. The tunnel ends at a junction. The footprints you have been following turn north, and you decide to stay with them. You soon come to another junction in the tunnel. One branch leads east, but the wet footprints you have been following continue north, and you decide to follow their trail. The passage opens out into a wide cabin which is darker but much drier. There is a large idol in the center of the cabin that must be 6 meters high. Not much farther down the tunnel, you come to a closed door on your left. The tunnel twists and turns, but keeps steadily north. Ahead, as soon as your head goes under the blue light, you hear the sound of muffled voices. The faces are no longer laughing, but have changed their expressions to one of despair and anguish. A young girl's sad face hovers in front of you, and she begins to whisper a poem. Transfixed, you listen intently, believing that she has a special message for you as she recites, "When corridor doth water meet, do not make a quick retreat. Take a breath and jump deep in, if your trial you hope to win." Memorizing the spirit girl's poem, you step through the shaft of light and quickly head on north. You come to an arched doorway set in the right hand. wall of the tunnel. The tunnel ends shortly at a junction. Looking left and right, you walk down the passage and soon find yourself standing at the edge of a deep, dark. Gripping the rope firmly, you step back to take a running jump. You land heavily on your back, but luckily your backpack cushions your fall. Only the tunnel makes a sudden left turn and continues north. Only a few meters further down the passage, you see another closed door in the left hand. The door opens into a large room. Looking around, you see touching the parchment has precisely the effect you had feared.
The skeleton is strong, but slow. You swing your sword, which smashes into its leg. You both swing for each other, and in the confusion, both miss. You dodge to the side as the warrior swings its sword. You kick out, knocking its legs out from under it.
Once again you reach for the parchment, only this time lying amidst a pile of broken bones. Unfolding it, you see a map of a room with a drawing of a hideous creature inside it. Beneath the monster is a rhyme, which reads, "Should you meet the manticore, of its tail beware. Shield yourself against the spikes flying through the air." You fold up the piece of parchment and put it in your backpack, repeating the rhyme over and over to yourself. At the back of the alcove are some steps leading down into a cellar. The tunnel continues west for several hundred meters, finally ending at some steps leading up to a closed trap door. You hear footsteps and suddenly the trapdoor is thrown back. For a few seconds you are completely blinded by the bright light from the room above and do not see the goblin thrusting his spear downwards. The tunnel continues west for several hundred meters. You throw the trapdoor open and run up the steps into a bright, lantern-lit room.
You hurl yourself at your enemy, fists flailing. and land a stunning blow. You both swing for each other, and in the confusion, both miss. You thrust your sword, and you clearly damage the creature. You lunge at the creature's stomach with your sword drawn, but the creature whips around, parrying your blow. Neither of you are harmed. You try to run around the side of the creature, but it grabs your arm, throwing you hard into the wall.
Triumphant in one of your toughest battles to date, you see that the only furniture in the goblin's room is a table, 2 chairs, and a cupboard on the wall. There are 2 closed doors, one in the west wall and the other in the north wall. The cupboard contains a wooden mallet and 10 iron spikes, which you put in your backpack while wondering which door to open. The door opens into another tunnel. Walking west, you soon arrive at another door in the north wall. The door opens into a small room in which there is a human skull with jeweled eyes resting on the top of a marble plinth. A row of loaded crossbows is fixed to the left-hand wall, and 2 small wooden balls lie on the floor just inside the door. You take aim and hurl the wooden ball at the skull. A test of skill. The wooden ball smashes into the skull, knocking it off the plinth and onto the floor. Much to your surprise, the crossbows do not release their deadly bolts. You step into the room cautiously and pick the skull up off the floor. You recognize the yellow jeweled eyes as topaz and eagerly pluck them from their sockets. You put them in your backpack, wondering whether or not a trap still awaits you in the room. A tickling sensation runs down your spine as you crawl carefully out of the room. Back in the tunnel, you heave a sigh of relief, throw the skull back into the room, and slam the door shut. Pleased with your good fortune, you set off west once again. The tunnel takes a sharp turn, and you find yourself in a sort of gallery lined with mirrors for some 20 meters. A human skeleton appears to be pulled halfway through the mirror along the right-hand wall. Suddenly, a grotesque being with 4 arms and 4 screaming faces emerges from the mirror, barring your way ahead. It walks slowly towards you, each arm outstretched to grab you. It is a mirror demon from another dimensional plane, come to take your spirit. You swing your sword against the mirror with all your might, but to no effect. The mirror does not break, and the mirror demon keeps advancing. The mirror demon, being solely intent on grabbing your arm, makes no attempt to defend itself. But beware. The mirror demon is a phenomenally powerful creature. If during any attack round the mirror demon's attack strength is greater than your own, it will win.
You smash your sword into its arm. You feel like you are hurting it, but it continues to approach.
Summoning all your strength, you deal the mirror demon one final blow with your sword. With an ear-splitting sound, cracks begin to run across its faces and limbs. Its many mouths cry out in the agony of its death throes before the demon shatters completely and falls to the ground in a pile of tiny fragments. You heave a huge sigh of relief and then hurry on past. In front of you are 2 flights of stone steps separated by a banister of rat skulls. The 4th step suddenly gives way under your weight, and your leg sinks into a deep hole. Before you have time to pull it out, you feel a pain in your foot as unseen sharp teeth sink into it. The high-pitched squeaking you hear below is made by starved rats that rip into your foot, hungry for your flesh, losing you 2 stamina points. You regain your balance and manage to pull your leg out of the hole, but 3 rats are still hanging from it, gnawing at your foot. Kicking frantically, you smash their heads against the banister until they let go. You wrap crude bandages torn from your shirt around your bleeding foot and climb the steps to set off north once again. The tunnel takes a sharp turn right, and after 100 meters comes to a junction. Looking left, you see the dead bodies of 2 orc guards. At least one of your rivals in the Trial of Champions must still be ahead of you. A quick search of the bodies produces nothing apart from a necklace of teeth hanging around the neck of one of the orcs. The necklace is an amulet of strength which adds 1 skill point and 1 stamina point. Pleased with your find, you continue your quest north. The tunnel soon ends at a junction. Standing there alone, although you are slightly uneasy in each other's company, the barbarian reluctantly agrees to your alternative suggestion. Feeling sorry for the loss of your new companion, you carry on down the tunnel. Suddenly you see daylight. You run towards the most beautiful sight you have seen for a long time and emerge, expecting to see the welcoming sight of cheering people. But there is no hero's welcome from the people all around you. They are dead. You are standing in a cold chamber littered with armored skeletons and bodies. The exit to victory was just an illusion. Only the corpses of the past adventures are real. Utterly dejected, you walk back towards the tunnel, but hit an invisible barrier. You, like the adventurers tricked before you, are trapped in this ghoulish place and destined to end your days in the chamber of the dead. There is an open pipe in the right-hand wall, about a meter in diameter. It is too dark to see far down it. There is a new branch in the tunnel on your left. The necklace is an amulet of strength, which adds 1 skill point and 1 stamina point. Pleased with your find, you continue your quest. The tunnel soon ends at a junction. Standing there alone, the eastern tunnel soon comes to a dead end. A piece of paper, brown and cold with age, is pinned to the end wall. The paper bears a simple warning, written in dried blood. Beware the trial masters. You replace the paper on its nail and run back down the tunnel to rejoin the barbarian. Running down the tunnel, you soon catch up with the barbarian and tell. Although you are slightly uneasy in each other's company, knowing the barbarian, who tells you he is called Throm, the tunnel soon divides into 2. There is a large panel of glass in the left-hand wall of the tunnel. Through it, you can see a bright, torch-lit room teeming with giant insects of every possible description. Bees, wasps, beetles, ticks. Even the mites are over 6 centimeters long. The noise is threatening. In the middle of the room, a jeweled crown lies on top of a small table. What looks like a large diamond is set in the middle of the crown.
Ja, offensichtlich brauchen wir hier den dritten Gem, right? Ich meine.
You smash the glass with the hilt of your sword, making a hole big enough to climb through. Immediately, the giant insects start swarming and jumping towards you. Wasting no time, you clamber into the room, grabbing one of the lit torches to defend yourself. The fire keeps most of the insects at bay, but by the time you have snatched the crown and climbed back into the corridor, some of them have stung you. We'll roll 1 die and add 2 to the total to decide how many stings you have suffered, reducing your stamina by 1 for each sting. The giant insects do not chase you, preferring the bright light of the room they are in. You examine the crown and see with disgust that it is merely painted iron, and the diamond is just glass and totally worthless. You throw it on the ground in a rage and wonder which way to go next. Ahead, in the far distance, you hear the sound of slow footsteps coming towards you. Unsure of who or what might be approaching, you look around for a place to hide. You see a large crack in the tunnel wall which lies in shadow. A crippled man with shackled feet shuffles into sight, carrying a wooden tray laden with bread and water. He looks tired and miserable, and quite unmoved by the sight of you, and tries to walk past. He eyes you suspiciously as you offer him a portion of your provisions. But hunger overcomes his fear and he crams the food into his mouth. You ask him what he is doing in the tunnels, and he explains that he is a servant of one of the trial masters. Baron Sukhumvitz appointed controllers of sections of his dungeon. He tells you he would like to escape, but no one is allowed to leave the dungeon in case the secret of its construction is revealed. You tell him that you are a contestant in the Trial of Champions and that you would appreciate any help. Rubbing his chin, he turns to you and says, "One good turn deserves another. All I can tell you is that in a northern tunnel there is a wooden chair carved in the shape of a demon bird. There is a secret panel in the arm of the chair which contains a potion in a glass phial. It's a doppelganger potion. Now, I must go back about my duties. Good luck. I hope we meet again outside these infernal tunnels." The man then shuffles off, and you continue your journey west. After a short while, you arrive at another junction in the tunnel, with a choice of two directions. The tunnel turns sharply to the right and continues north for as far as you can see. There is a door in the left-hand wall which is ajar, and you hear someone cry for help from the other side of it. The door opens into a small room with a straw-covered floor. There is a large draped cage standing some 2 meters high in the center of the room. A cord fixed to the top of the drape runs through an iron ring in the ceiling and hangs down to the floor. You pull the cord and watch the drape as it rises up the sides of an iron cage. The woman's voice urges you to be quick, telling you that the room is booby-trapped, so that the floor will fall away in 1 minute because of your extra weight. The drape rises to the top of the cage, and there, to your horror, you see the face of an aged woman whose hair is a mass of seething snakes. It is the dreaded Medusa. Are you lucky enough to avoid her gaze? Recognizing the snake-like head of the Medusa, you close your eyes to avoid her deadly stare that would turn you to stone. The Medusa shrieks as you enter her cage. Keeping your eyes firmly closed and slashing your sword wildly from side to side, you feel the blade sink deep into her side and hear a loud thud as she slumps heavily to the ground. You open your eyes again and shudder at the sight of the prostrate figure of the Medusa. Her gown is fastened by a large brooch bearing a single bright red gem. It is a garnet, and you prize it out of its setting, put it in your pocket, and leave the room to head north. The tunnel continues for quite a distance before you reach a junction. Ahead, you see that the tunnel turns a corner, beyond which it continues north. You stop before the corner, startled by the sound of high-pitched voices, whispering and sniggering. You peep around the corner and see two small creatures running away from you. Both are dressed in baggy clothes and wear pointed floppy hats. They are mischievous leprechauns. Running after the leprechauns, you hear more laughter, only now it is behind you. You look round and see 6 more emerging from a hidden door in the tunnel wall. Yet another leprechaun drops on your back from a ledge fixed to the ceiling. Shaking him off, you draw your sword, whereupon the laughing gets even louder. You push past the 2 leprechauns and head off north, the noise of jeering and laughter ringing in your ears. Further up the tunnel, you stop to rest and check your belongings. Any jewels you had are now gone. The leprechauns that landed on your back stole them from your backpack. You curse the thieving leprechauns and set off north again. The tunnel leads north for some distance before coming to a dead end. The mouth of a chute protrudes from the tunnel's eastern wall. It seems to be the only way out. So you decide to risk it and climb into the chute. You slide gently down and emerge in a new room, landing on your back. As soon as you stand up, you are confronted by the most repulsive sight. You have ever laid eyes on.
The creature launches its head out of the pool in front of you and reaches for you with its mouth. You plunge your sword into one of its many eyes. It shrieks and backs away. The creature turns and whips its tail at you. The fierce spike at the end misses you by millimeters. You jump forward and strike a clean blow into its rear.
Your blade strikes one of the blood beast's real eyes with devastating effect. The tunnel leads into a large room. Its ceiling supported by... You recognize the beast. It is a manticore. Taking heed of... You raise your shield in front of you just in time to protect yourself from a volley of spikes.
The creature runs directly at you. You move too late.
The tunnel continues for quite a distance before you reach a junction. A brown velvet curtain is draped over an archway in the eastern wall of the tunnel. You enter a cold room, divided by a deep chasm. A rope is stretched taut across the chasm to the far side, where a magnificent winged helmet rests on top of a pole. Testing every last drop of your skill, you step nervously onto the rope, not daring to look down. Halfway across, you start to panic and lose your footing. Walking on a rope like this requires skill. Well, test yours. As you fall, you manage to grab the rope with your hands. Slowly, you haul yourself over to the far side and scramble up onto the floor. You lift the helmet off the pole and put it on your head. It has been made by a highly skilled ironsmith and increases your skill by 1 point. Not wanting to risk walking back across the tightrope, you decide to crawl along it. Safely back on firm ground, you step through the archway and head north up the tunnel. The tunnel continues north a long way before turning sharp right. Around the corner, as soon as you stand, up. Leaning against the left-hand wall of the tunnel, you see a pair of bamboo stilts. There is a slot in the padlock into which you place the coin. Immediately the lock clicks apart, and you are able to unchain the stilts. You place them on your shoulder and once again set off north. A little farther on, you come to a section of the tunnel which is covered with thick green slime. You walk no more than 3 meters west before you hit an invisible barrier. It starts fizzing and crackling, and you are thrown back. You have hit an energy screen, losing you 1 stamina point. There is no alternative but to walk back to the junction and head north. You soon arrive at a double door in the left-hand wall. You finally reach the warrior's body, but as soon as you touch the jewel, both it and the warrior vanish into thin air. You hear the The tunnel leads into a large room. Its ceiling, you recognize the beast. It is a manticore. Taking heed of, you raise your shield in front of you just in time to protect yourself from a volley of
The creature runs directly at you. You move too late, and the creature smashes you onto a wall, costing you valuable stamina. The giant creature whips its spiked tail at you, firing more spikes. You duck and roll, quickly slicing a chunk from its tail, passing close to you. You seize an opportunity to attack the creature's leg, but it's ready for you. And before you can strike, it rips your leg with its razor-sharp claws.
As you are wiping the manticore's blood from your sword, you are surprised to see the gnome shakes his head and says, "I am afraid that you have failed the trial of champions." The tunnel leads into a large room, its ceiling supported by several. The clamor